What is happening, guys? Cowboy here, and welcome to my build crafting guide for Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Now, if you've never played one of these Team Ninja games before, like Nioh, for example, you may not be familiar with just how kind of convoluted the build crafting can get in these games. And things have definitely been simplified a bit in Wolong. It still can be a little bit daunting, but I do think it's easier than before. And the goal of this video is to cover everything you need to know to put together a proper build. So we're going to be going through the building blocks of creating a build. We're going to be talking about the follower system and using those to help flesh out your build. And of course, we're going to be covering the blacksmith and all the various interactions with asphyxes and fully kitting out your armor so that you can be as effective as possible. In terms of spoilers, things are going to be incredibly minimal. You'll obviously see the hub, which we're at right now, and we're going to be talking about the followers in the game, so you'll see some names in that list that if you've ever played a Dynasty Warriors game, you're obviously familiar with all of those. But either way, let's jump in and talk about some build crafting. And when it comes to starting a build, I think there are three primary considerations to take into mind. The first is going to be the general playstyle you want, as that's going to impact the virtues you want to level. The second is, of course, what wizardry spells you're most drawn to, as the strength of those is going to be based on your virtue level. And the third, and this one is not as important, but the scaling of weapons that you're interested in, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But to do a very brief overview of the virtues, we went more in depth into these in the starter guide, and I'd suggest checking that out. But wood builds are going to be very beginner friendly. You get more HP per point in wood, you get spirit defense, and it has a lot of buffs. So things that are going to increase your spirit gain or give you the ability to leech life. It is a very safe beginner friendly virtue. Fire is going to be all about aggression. Spirit gain rate on attack is going to be one of the biggest ways for you to ramp your spirit up in the game. And whether you're doing martial arts or wizardry or whatever the case is, obviously more spirit is more damage. So this is probably the most aggressive playstyle. Earth is going to be the most defensive playstyle. Your spirit gain rate comes from your deflect. A lot of these spells are very much defense oriented, crowd control oriented. So it's a slower, kind of thick boy patient playstyle. Metal is very interesting in that it's all going to be about debilitation. On top of lowering the wizardry spell consumption rate, we have toxin with this. We have things that are going to make enemies weaker, make them take more damage. So if you want to be like a debilitation warlock or something like that, metal virtue is your go-to. Lastly, we have water, and I think water is another very beginner friendly virtue. It's going to give you stealth, so you'll be able to kind of walk around levels picking off enemies with critical blows much easier. It's going to decrease the spirit consumption rate on deflect, so whether you're deflecting or dodging, that's not going to cost as much. And obviously it levels up your ranged weapons, so you can pop enemies off from afar. The spells in water, of course, going to be chill based, so slowing enemies down and just making combat more approachable. So once you have an idea of, this sounds like a good playstyle. So for example, chill. I like the idea of stealthing around and taking enemies out. The next thing would be to look at the wizardry spells. Now you're going to unlock all the wizardry spells as you play, but since the effectiveness of a spell is tied to how much you've invested in that virtue, it's important to consider not just the spells available, but even the endgame spells. Because, looking at fire, for example, my firebolt is going to be hitting for probably triple the damage that my frost lance is hitting for, because I only have 2 in frost and I have 57 in fire. So keep in mind, if you really like the fast action of frost lance, because it's just like boom, 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 and throwing out these icicles, then go ahead and level ice. But if you want to see big nukes on fire, you're not going to see the nukes that I have on blasting flare without significant investment. So it's really important when you start playing to try out all the spells and find out what really works for you, what draws you in. Because even if you're looking at this and you're like, well, I plan on just fighting and being martial arts, the wizardry spells are a huge part of the game. They seamlessly work into the combat. There's infinite casts since they cost spirit. So regardless of your chosen playstyle, you shouldn't sleep on the wizardry stuff. You definitely want to work it into your build in some capacity. And so I think deciding what wizardry you like is another safe bet when deciding on your build. Now some stuff like buffs, you only need to have that amount. For example, I have 2 in water, so I can have cloud stance, and then I have only 6 in wood, so I can have spirit fervor. Besides that, I didn't have a reason to invest any further in those. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're creating a build. If there's very basic buffs, for example, absorb vitality is 3. I think pretty much every build in this game should have at least 3 wood, because absorb vitality is awesome for boss fights, being able to heal off of the critical blows for a significant amount. But so look through the spells, especially the late game spells, because stuff like You know, Ominous Chill, this is a super devastating spell, possibly the strongest spell in the game, but it's going to require a 40 investment over in ice. So your heavy hitting spells are very much build makers, you know, stuff like Ominous Chill, stuff like Heaven's Rage, stuff like Engulfing Inferno. These are going to be spells that basically up front are saying, you know, this is for a fire build. But moving on from there, I mentioned the third thing is going to be the weapons. Now this isn't going to be as important because there are going to be all kinds of different scaling weapons, but this will give you a general idea, and you'll meet the blacksmith in the second mission, and she's going to have a more condensed list than what you see here, but I can look through it and find some good examples. So right here, the bronze and guard poleaxe along with the wooden hammer. I can see even though there's slightly different special effects, all of these are going to be earth scaling. So it's very clear to me, oh, if I want to be a thick boy, if I want to use the slow heavy weapon, earth is going to be my go-to stat. And I really want to reiterate that this is just for a general idea and not a comprehensive list. Because looking right here, Cavalry Halberd primarily scales water, Bronze Halberd primarily scales earth, and meanwhile, I have a halberd that primarily scales with fire. And both of those other both of those other halberds, fire was the tertiary stat and it wasn't going to be all that valuable. Whereas with my build, it's going to be the primary. And this is true for a couple things. I've seen a lot of people already being like, well, hey, you know, I really want to do dual blades. And just looking, we can see dual blades are going to be water all the way around. Whether it's the curved ones or the regular, it's water. Well, I can already tell you that I know there's a pair of dual blades that are primarily scaling in wood. So while looking at the weapons the blacksmith have is a safe bet early on to help kind of decide which way you might want to go, it's definitely not the end-all be-all because there are weapons outside of what the blacksmith offers that will have unique scaling. Now, as far as I've been able to tell, I'm about halfway through New Game Plus. I haven't found the way to outright change scaling on weapons. I haven't found a way to also change the special effect either. So I don't know if there's a way to respec that later into New Game Plus. There might be, but as of now, I'm about halfway through New Game Plus and that hasn't popped up. So it may be something they're saving for DLC, or we just may be locked with the scaling that our weapon comes with. Lastly, keep in mind that of course we do have the ability to respec. After you finish the 5th main mission of the game, you unlock Chao Si, and you can come here and just hit reset parameters, and it's very, very simple to respec in this game. You know, there's no cost associated with it. You can do it at any time that you can travel back to the base. And then of course we can even take those builds and we can save them with battle sets. So, you know, just with this build where I have summon fire and summon earth and weapons for both, I can have 2 different battle sets that I can freely swap between in missions. So one's going to be more earth focused, one is going to be more fire focused. So it's very easy for you to be a little bit flexible. You know, try emphasizing on water and then coming here and respec and emphasizing on wood, for example. And because of this, I think it's really good in terms of weapons, at least, to find something where you're going to see good scaling. Something like this, obviously it's primarily scaling with water, but if I swap over to the earth build, this is still going to do great damage. It's A- in earth, so it's going to do just fine. Either way, with that being covered, I want to hop on over to a mission and talk about the follower system, because that's going to have another big impact on build crafting. Now, so far, I've seen a lot of people not really a fan of the NPCs. They, you know, how can I get rid of the NPC? I don't want this person with me. But the NPCs are actually super, super useful for a couple reasons. One, when you have a follower along, when you have a reinforcement along, you are getting that warrior effect. So if I have Zhao Yun with me, I'm getting 4% more spirit gain from deflecting and 6% more morale rank points gain. But the big sell of them is by playing with them and getting them up to Oath level 10, we're actually going to get armors from them. So for example, Zhao Yun is almost there, and I can see that he is earth element. Now I am a fire build, so let me look through for a fire guy that I don't have maxed. I don't have enough for him. You know what, let's just do Zhao Yun. So Zhao Yun is earth. You know, I can see earth, fire, metal, and this is going to kind of line up with your own build. So since Zhao Yun is earth, right, I can use a cup of cordiality. I have 3 of those. I'm going to give him one of those cups, and that's boosted him on up to a sworn brother. The cups are going to greatly boost the familiarity gauge, the oath level. Now, once you get that oath level all the way up, I can see there's now a delivery waiting for me. And by going to that delivery, I have received the set of boldness as well as the unparalleled spear. Now this is the gear that Zhao Yun uses himself. So going on over, I can see I now have the unparalleled spear. Zhao Yun was earth, and sure enough, this is going to be a primary earth scaling spear. And I also have access to his full set. So I have the full boldness set, boosts up spear damage, deflects spear consumption, etc., etc. And this is going to be one of the primary ways that you really get your build started. Now, obviously, you can just summon these people and bring them along on missions, and that oath level is going to steadily rise. The cups are much harder to find, but you can use those to gain rapid gains. But the point here is my own set with this build, the Young Conqueror, that is from maxing out Sensei. The Tiger Fang Dual Halberds, that is from Sensei. This is Sensei's set. So what I have done is I maxed out my familiarity with Sensei. He gifted me his full armor set, and immediately I had the building blocks for a fire build. I had all 4 set pieces that I needed. I had the weapons that I needed. And because of that, the follower system is going to be incredibly important to get your build started. Now, there are going to be sets outside of that. For example, Sky Piercing. This is, as you can see from the bottom, part of Lu Bu's set. Lu Bu is not a follower. So if I want to get this set in full, I'm going to have to farm up the pieces the same that I did back in the Nioh games. But you still can get a set going by doing the familiarity and getting that from a follower. Just like I just did with right here. I did it earlier with Zhang Fei, so I have the full Invictus set already. And that's really important because it's going to be one of the main ways that you basically lay the building blocks for your set. Just looking at that list again, if I am playing as a metal build, leveling up Sun Jian and getting him up to oath level 10, that's going to give me a weapon that is primary with metal scaling. It's going to give me a set that's going to be great for that. If I want to do wood, Liu Bei is going to give me a pair of swords, which right here, those are going to be wood scaling dual swords because Liu Bei is primarily wood. So I know if I level him up, I'm getting wood scaling dual swords and I'm getting his set, which is going to be oriented towards wood. So do not overlook the follower system. I really can't stress enough how important it is and how much of kind of just a step hold it is to really get you along your way to building a build. Now, outside of using the cups, as I mentioned, those are more rare. There are tiger seals. There is a tiger seal farm. Briefly, we're going to take a look at that. Obviously, minor spoilers as we're going to be looking at some mission names. But if I go over here to difficulties and I go to part 4, there is this battle right here, Realm of Battle. This is going to be a very straightforward fight. You jump in, you fight some dudes, and that's it. But this mission, they consistently drop the tiger seals. So once you get up to it, if you ever need to farm tiger seals, you jump in here, kill those dudes, get tiger seals. It's very straightforward. Either way, let's jump back over to the base. And the next thing we're going to talk about to wrap up the video is going to be the blacksmithing. Now, the blacksmith is arguably the most important part in the build making process. This is going to be where everything is fleshed out. If we're making an ice cream, this is all of the toppings. And props to Team Ninja because it is significantly easier to do than it was back in Nioh and Nioh 2, where it was incredibly convoluted and basically impossible to figure out on your own. But jumping on in, so we have a couple of basic things here. Upgrade is just going to increase how strong our armor and weapons are. Embedment is going to determine the affixes that is in our gear. Decorate is the transmog. This is going to change what our weapons and armor look like. Salvage is how we're going to get the materials we need to do embedment. Selling, of course, will just get you coppers, and then buying, as we already looked at, is honestly buying is primarily for you to pick up consumables because you're not going to be buying any of these weapons. But so to go in depth into each, upgrading this time around is significantly easier than before. Now all we have to do is select the item. We need the coppers to upgrade it, of course, and the required materials. This is +3. To make it +4, I need rank 4 steel. Upgrade. Yes, it's now upgraded. It's that simple, very much basically kind of the Dark Souls model, except things just stop at +9. So once you get to +9, you're all set. Now, moving on from there, actually real fast, obviously armor is the same way. We have ranked leather, and then we have ranks of steel. So you're just going to find this stuff as you play the game, and you can also get it from dismantling, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, upgrading is super simple compared to how it used to be. Moving on to embedment. Now the way embedment works is this is going to be how we pick the affixes on our gear. This is going to be how you get flame attack power, damage bonus light equipment load, and spirit gain from normal attacks, for example. Now the basic gist behind this is you take a piece of gear. Let's take the unparalleled spear, for example. We'll take this, and we're going to go to choose embedment slot, and I'm going to salvage these 3 things off of it. Now what that's going to do is opened up 3 separate areas where I can pick various affixes and customize my weapon. Now the general rule of thumb is let me go down to an actual weapon here. It's not a ranged weapon. Well, anyway, blue weapons are going to have 2 affix slots, so I can see 1, 2. One of those is going to be locked. Purple are going to have 3 affix slots. One of those is also going to be locked. And then once you get into the yellow gear, you're going to have 4 affix slots. Now with these, you have 3, and your set bonus is considered a 4th. I don't know if I have any 4-star. Let me see. Here we go. This is a 4-star non-set, and I can see that I have 4 slots, but the first slot is still going to be locked. So keep in mind, anything that's not a set piece, the first slot is always going to be locked. So in this one, damage dealt in perfect condition, that's stuck on there. And this one, spirit gain from normal attacks, is going to be stuck on there. And this one, it's spirit arts, martial arts spirit consumption. So that first category I can't change unless it's a set piece. So this one, the yellow heaven must rise, even though it's only a 3-star, I can remove that because the yellow heaven must rise is considered the locked stat. Now the basic idea is you're going to take something and then you're going to put various affixes on it. So working with the unparalleled spear, since I just cleared that off, I can have a couple different affixes. There's a few categories. So the little gray dot, these are just generalist. You could put on a bunch of these. We have the blue triangle, which you're going to be able to do 1 blue triangle. Scrolling down, we have the little green shield. You're going to be able to do 1 green shield. And then scrolling down, we have special ones. Now, these ones are considered unique, and you'll notice they say 0 next to them. That's because to get these, I actually need to have broken something down and have it on hand. So something like Flame Enchant, I need to have a Flame Enchant that I can put into this weapon, because those are considered consumed on use. Whereas these other ones, I can do as many of them as I want. Here's actually an example, this Haste Upon Martial Arts. This will be consumed upon use. So if I use this, this weapon will have haste on martial arts, and I won't be able to use this again. But the idea is you can mix and match and pull 1 from each category. So for example, this is a spear. Looking through it, I have spirit attack damage is solid, that's going to be 3.1%. Martial arts, 3.1. Spirit damage in general will be 2.6. What was spear damage? Let's look at that. Spear damage will also be 2.6. So you know what? It's a spear. Let's just go spear damage. So I'll put that on. Now that has filled up my red triangle slot. So if I go to the next one, you can see all the red triangles are now grayed out because I already have one of those. But instead, I can go and add a shield on. Now the shields are going to be based on spirit consumption. So I'm also going to go just spirit gain in general, not normal attacks or deflecting or whatever. I just want general spirit gain. And then I have 1 more slot, and in this one, I've already used up my triangle. I've used up my shields, so all I have left are going to be the basics. However, if I did have something unique like this one, I could put this on, but keep in mind that would end up getting used up. So for most of them, the general go-to I go is going to be something like attack power. So I could go flame attack power, and now I have a new spear that's going to boost flame attack power. It's going to give me spirit gain, and it's going to give me spear damage. And if I wanted to swap this out, it's very simple. I just go back in, extract that off, and then I can go in, and since this is more of a stone weapon, I can make it stone attack power instead. It's really that simple. Now moving on to decorate, as I mentioned, this is just going to be changing it. So you pick it, you hit decorate, and then I can preview the different things I could turn it into. Pretty straightforward on that. It's a little bit convoluted here, as I don't actually see the preview until I select it. So now that I've selected, I can see it's changed. And if I want to change it back, I need to remove the decoration and then go and preview again, which is something I think they could improve because we had previews in Nioh. I don't know why we don't have them here, but regardless, the system is still there and it's cheap. It only costs 1,000 copper to do that. Lastly, we have salvage and sell. Now, the basic rule of thumb is always salvage before you sell. And that's because there are a couple things that are going to be unique. So as we're scrolling on through here, look over on the right hand side and I can see +7, I'm getting rank 7 steel, rank 7 steel, rank 7 steel, rank 8 steel. So this is steel to level up other stuff because this is already +8. On top of that, you can find salvageable jewelry essence. So for example, with this cavalry halberd, spirit vulnerability upon enemy on martial arts. By salvaging that, I now have one of those stored away that I can put on a weapon. Looking further down the list, now this is just a basic reusable that I don't have. So negative attribute damage upon guard. By going ahead and picking that up, which I actually don't want to salvage this, it's part of a separate set. But by picking that up, I'll then be able to put negative attribute damage upon guard on any of my gear, and since it's just a little gray dot, that's going to be reusable. So what I would highly suggest doing is before you do any selling, always go through your gear and look, both armor and weapons, and see what you can salvage. Because you're going to have plenty of jewel fragments, those are just the general salvageable material, but the salvageable jewelry essence, ammo replenishment upon fatal strike, that is a single use. So I don't just want to sell this item because that's something that I could put on a different set of armor. So go through salvage. What I'd suggest doing is checking anything that's going to be unique that you want to salvage off the essence of, something like that. And it's very fast, just to scroll through the list. There was another one, so I'd check that. And then whenever I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and hit confirm. It's going to salvage those pieces, and then I'm going to have that stuff to put as fixes on other pieces of armor. After I've salvaged and I've pulled anything unique, the last thing I'm going to do is just go to sell. And at that point, I'm just going to hit check all. And that's going to check anything else that I have left over and sell it for coppers, which I know it's like, whoa, why would you need 400,000 coppers? Trust me, you're going to burn through it really fast. Because especially once you start getting the late game upgrades, 45,000 copper to get this bad boy up to rank 8. And then I believe it's 60,000 copper to get it up to rank 9. So definitely don't ignore sell, because you are going to be burning through copper as you go through this process. But that is going to be it. That's going to be everything you need to know for the blacksmith. I mean, this in particular is stuff I wish I'd known at the start, because I accidentally sold a weapon that had flame enchant after I put it back on it. And then for a while I was like, where did my flame enchant go? Why can't I use flame enchant? I didn't realize they were consumables. So, good example is right now I have damage bonus light equip load. If I ever want to pull that on something else, I'm going to have to extract it out of my Tiger Fang dual halberds first. But either way, that is going to wrap things up for our build crafting guide. I know we covered a lot of information, but hopefully y'all will be able to go in and make some crazy ass builds on your own. I know I do plan on having a build video up for the build you've seen in these tutorial videos. This build claps. It is super good, but that'll probably be sometime tomorrow. Either way, we are wrapping things up here. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll catch y'all next time.